Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Dune Part 2, number 2 would be Kung Fu Panda 4, number 3 would be Imaginary, number 4 would be Bob Marley One Love, and number 5 would be Ordinary Angels. And I got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, and surprisingly it's not the first 2. I thought for sure I had a pretty bold, pretty correct opinion on what was going to happen with the number 1 and number 2 spot, but actually, turned out it was a little bit surprising, and a lot of you were predicting the same things and are also getting surprised. Only one of you got a shout out this weekend, so congratulations. Reminder also to make sure you get these predictions out before Friday at the very least, because at that point articles come out saying like, here's how it's shaping up, and if you post it on Friday, I don't know if you do it before an article comes out, but either way, it's just best to do it before that. And also don't edit your comment, because if you get your predictions right, I'm just gonna assume that you edited it before I could get the screenshot, you know what I mean? Sorry, get that out of the way. I don't know why. It's not like I saw that or anything. Anyways, let's just go over what happened in the overall top 10. Happy Oscar Sunday, by the way. I'm going to try to get this video out a little bit earlier. I'm recording this pretty early on as well, so hopefully this video can come out before the actual ceremony, or at least by the end of the day. If not, it's recorded. Fuck off. Anyways, number 1 was actually Kung Fu Panda 4. And it's not just this like, oh, well, it does what it always does, so of course it's going to be number 1. It actually got a little bit of juice in it. It made $58 million for the 3-day weekend, which means that it's $2 million below the original film's opening weekend of $60 million, but it is $17 million above the last film, Kung Fu Panda 3, and $11 million over 2. So it actually got a little bit of a surge, The other 2 films still did really well, but this one, as far as the opening, managed to get some other people this time around, and it's kind of rivaling the first one. So that is pretty good for this movie, honestly. So it actually, my prediction for Dune taking it over this weekend was just based off of, I don't know how many people are still into Kung Fu Panda as like a franchise, if that can really get butts into seats, but lo and behold, here you go, good on you. As far as outgrossing the other films domestically, it needs $85 million until it gets to Kung Fu Panda 3. Worldwide, it is sitting at $80 million right now, so it has a longer way to go. It needs $441 million to get to Kung Fu Panda 3, but good news is that this budget is $85 million, so they only need 170 to double that and, be considered a success by typical industry standards. So, they have a much easier road than some other movies that work off of a pretty good budget but don't have the correct kind of push to get casual audience members or even film fans into the seats. I also want to give a quick disclaimer before I go any further, because I'm recording this a little earlier. I think I've waited long enough to have like some updated numbers, but there might be some more numbers missing later on, and when we get to the end of the video, there's something else that I'll bring up, so just keep that in mind. Same thing with all these box office videos mostly, is that because I record them on Sundays, you don't have the exact results. It's just better to get it out for me on Sunday. So either way, good on Kung Fu Panda 4. Even though I wasn't too big on it, I think you can kind of see a natural, decline. First 2 are pretty good and like kind of the same for me as far as like quality, and then it's like step down with 3, but it's still good, and then 4, like, oh, it's we're in Illumination territory now. but the fact that it still has some fans out there, or newer fans in this case, there you go. I do wonder how it'll hold over, just based off of maybe people went to see it just based off of nostalgia for the franchise when they were younger, and now they're like, oh, 4, well, yeah, those first couple movies were pretty damn good, so why don't I go check this out? I don't know how that will translate into repeat business, but either way, they're on a pretty solid track right now. So let's move on to number 2, which is Dune Part 2, still holding over very well like I thought it would, only dropping about 40 to 50%, which is good. That is great for this movie. Made $46 million this weekend, which now adds to a domestic total of $157 million. It is outgrossed for Denis Villeneuve Blade Runner by $65 million, Arrival by $57 million, and Dune Part 1 by $48 million. So domestically, it is officially the highest grossing film for Denis Villeneuve, which is outstanding. Worldwide, just a little bit more to go. It's now sitting at $367 million, so it's outgrossed Arrival by $165 million and Blade Runner by $110 million, needs $67 million to get to Dune Part 1, which obviously it's going to get. So it's just gonna be Denis Villeneuve's highest grossing film, and that's incredible. You know, like I was kind of saying before it even came out, like, you had the first movie, it did pretty well considering the drop on HBO Max at the same time, and, you know, Dune had a pretty bad movie adaptation in the 80s. Do people, you know, care about Dune? Are people going to care about this? But here we go, and because it's been out so long and it's got that acclaim, and then people were like, okay, well, maybe I didn't see it before, maybe I'll check it out now, and the people that did check it out at home, now they have to kind of pay to see the second one in theaters. So yeah, just the audience grew, and it makes me wonder how big Dune Part 3, if they officially announce that at any point, how big that will be. And as far as I know, because Denis Villeneuve is like, yeah, I'm good. I want to make Dune 3, but I have these other projects I want to do. Like, there's a secret one I want to make, like, right away. So it might even be a bit of a longer, maybe, gap between Dune Part 1 and Part 2. So maybe in that time period, the audience can continue to grow as people spread the word about how much they enjoy these movies. And then maybe we'll see an even bigger box office return. That could be really special. So yeah, Dune Part 2 still on a really good track here. It needs $13 million, by the way, until it gets to $380 million, which is the doubling point of its $190 million initial production budget. So, like I said, it's on the right track here. Let's move on to number 3, which is Imaginary, which only made $10 million this weekend, but because it is a Blumhouse horror film, the budget is relatively low. In fact, it is sitting at $10 to $12 million. So let's just err on the side of caution and say it cost $12 million to make. So it needs about $14 million more to double that $12 million point. So I think it will get there just because it is a low enough number, but it could have a decent kind of continue into the next couple weekends. For the director, Jeff Wadlow, the opening weekend is $10 million over True Memoirs of an International Assassin, the Kevin James Netflix film. So yeah, it's over that one by $10 million because it's Netflix. It's $2 million over the opening weekend of Never Back Down and $6 million over Cry Wolf from 2005. It is below the opening weekends for some of his recent efforts, though, like Fantasy Island. It's below that opening weekend by $2 million, Truth or Dare by $8 million, and Kick-Ass 2 by $3 million. And then for the domestic filmography, it has outgrossed the Netflix film True Memoirs by $10 million and Cry Wolf by a couple $100,000. Now needs $14 million until it outgrosses Never Back Down. So despite the fact that Jeff Wadlow, he's kind of a little bit notorious just as far as like people like me who are aware of who directed Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island. So he's a little bit notorious in that sense. So I only really want to compare like his films instead of just like the entire catalog of Blumhouse. And it just seems like even those movies might end up being, like his most recent ones, might end up being more popular or just having a better box office performance than this one. I mean, I guess we'll see. It's just right now, you know, it's not like this opening, despite it being good for Blumhouse standards, it's not like it's making waves. It's getting Jeff Wadlow's name out there, and it's not like the critical reception is all that great either. So it's, you know, we'll see, I guess. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be too hasty as far as saying, like, oh, it's not even as popular as Truth or Dare, a fucking terrible-ass, goofy movie. It's not as good as that nonsensical Fantasy Island one, but still, it'll be interesting to see how it does, because the fact that, you know, it's behind an earlier film like Never Back Down by this amount, and I'm not even sure how well it's going to hold over. You know, and there's no worldwide total to compare right now, so it just kind of makes me think, you know, it still has a longer way to go with some of these other films. That being said, it's not like Jeff Wadlow has directed a film that's like a mega blockbuster like Denis. You know, before he made Dune, he still had, you know, Arrival making $100 million domestically. So it's not like he has one of those. Kick-Ass 2, you know, underperforms obviously. So I don't know. They all kind of range about the same. Who gives a shit? Let's move on to number 4, which is Cabrini. This movie came out of nowhere. Didn't know it was coming out. This is the same guy who made Sound of Freedom and a movie called Bella, but Sound of Freedom is the one you've heard of. Kind of notorious for this show, also kind of coming out of nowhere and, you know, doing really well. Who knows if it was all, you know, who knows if it was all legit, but it did well money-wise. This movie made $7 million. There's no worldwide total to add on to this right now, but it is sitting at a budget of $50 million. Jesus Christ. For the opening weekend, it is $6 million over the director's other film, Bella, but $12 million below Sound of Freedom. And then for the domestic filmography, Bella, it needs $1 million to outgross that, but Sound of Freedom, it needs $177 million to outgross that, because obviously that went on to be a big hit. I don't think, believe it or not, I don't think this movie will get the same kind of response that Sound of Freedom got. Sound of Freedom is a weird culture war lightning in a bottle. Not necessarily lightning in a bottle in a good way. Just as far as that wave it caught onto, that financial wave, that was a lightning in a bottle moment for that movie. A movie that maybe any other time of the year with a little bit less of a push, a little bit less of attention, it would not have caught on as much as it did. But I don't think Cabrini is going to get the same. I don't know if they're still doing that, like, scan the QR code in the credits and buy someone else's ticket thing. Maybe they are. I don't know. It is still Angel Studios, by the way. So I don't know. This could just be dead in the water, or maybe they will eventually make back that $50 million initial production budget. I don't fucking know. Let's move on to number 5, which is Bob Marley, making $4 million, adding to a domestic total of $89 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $160 million. So still doing pretty well here, you know? I don't really have much more to add to this. I feel like we've already covered it. The fact that it's already outgrossed the director's previous films in the first opening weekend kind of says it all, doesn't it? You know, it still has $50 million to go until it triples that $70 million budget, so there's nothing that much else interesting to compare it to. If it does get that $50 million, that'd be great, but it does also kind of seem like it's slowing down a bit. But, you know, it's still doing well, so I have nothing else to add. Let's move on to number 6, which is Ordinary Angels, making $2 million, adding to a domestic total of $16 million. Still, they need about $10 million to double this initial production budget of $13 million. They are not there yet. So bummer for that, I guess. Once again, similar to Bob Marley, I don't really have much more to add. You know, I kind of already covered this in the last couple videos, and there's not really any other interesting news or any other things to compare it to, so let's just keep moving to number 7, Madam Web. The movie that is always interesting to talk about, no matter how it's doing. It made $1.12 million, adding to a domestic total of $42 million. It is now behind Morbius by $31 million. Worldwide, sitting at $96 million. It is $66 million away from Morbius now. It is still not broken $100 million worldwide. That is absurd, you know? I mean, absurd if you just take into consideration, like, Morbius made more than that, so it broke $100 million, but Madam Web is still having trouble getting there, you know what I mean? And the thing is, like, the thing that has just kind of come out, and it's all rumor mill, so maybe it's not true, but apparently, according to rumors, Sony is upset that Dakota Johnson used her press tour to kind of disparage the film and and kind of say some things that weren't too flattering or weren't too convincing to get people on board. And if that is true, if it is true that they're upset about that press tour, guys, this is your fault. Genuinely, no one is asking you to make any of these movies. This is your decision. It's also your decision to invest in the ideas that eventually come onto screen, that people, mostly across the board, obviously there are some people who are fans of the Venom movies, and I've even seen some people try to defend both Madam Web and Morbius, which is, you know, very weird to me, but it does have some fans. But mostly, if you look at, like, the majority opinion, there's a lot of people who have not cared for the treatment of any of these characters. They don't care for these solo villain movies where they're not even villains anymore. They're just heroes. They're not even anti-heroes, really. But you're the ones who keep doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it wasn't going to last forever. You're not going to have Venom hits. You know what I mean? Venom 1 and 2, they got really lucky. Morbius, not so lucky. And now Madam Web is just kind of the leftovers of that, like, kind of showing they've not learned anything. They're just continuing on this path that they have created for themselves, and now this isn't even as big a hit as Morbius could be. That's absurd. Maybe Craven will be better, or maybe Craven will be just as bad, or good. Who gives a shit? This is stupid. Sony, you guys suck. This is all your fault. It's always the executive's fault. Let's move on to number 8, which is Migration, making $1.10 million, adding to a domestic total of $125 million. So for the Illumination filmography, it is $34 million behind Secret Life of Pets 2 now domestically. Worldwide, it is sitting at $281 million. So not only does that now place it $70 million behind the Lorax, but if they get $7 million more, they will officially quadruple that $72 million initial production budget, which is probably all they care about at this point. Now, I should probably let you guys, that's all I'm going to say about Migration, because similar to the Bob Marley and Ordinary Angels, I just don't really have much more to add. I've kind of already covered everything about this, how it's a miracle that this kind of got the Puss in Boots Last Wish treatment, just not the same amount of money, but it kind of got the same treatment. So I have nothing else to add. I will let you know that these last two, they could be in the top 10, or maybe something else will be there. I'm kind of recording this, like I said a little earlier, and it seemed like there was a certain Fathom event that was missing that I'm pretty sure is supposed to still be playing. If it does wind up being on the numbers list, or even the Box Office Mojo list later, then, you know, just ignore the rest of this video. But I'm just gonna pretend like that Fathom event doesn't exist for these next two, just because I think it's funnier. Why would I wait on it? You know what I mean? I don't have all day. I want to get this out before the fucking Oscars. And if not before the Oscars, at least before the day ends. If it's not there, then fuck it. So with that being said, let's move on to number 9, which is Yolo, a new Chinese film. It made $840,000 this weekend, so we're back into this kind of territory with movies dipping into the 100,000s. Not sure what the budget of this thing is, but worldwide it has made the equivalent in USD of $479 million. So hopefully, whatever the budget is, hopefully this is enough to break even on that point. I don't really have anything else here because it just kind of showed up out of the blue, so congratulations. Let's move on to close out the video. Number 10, Wonka. It just hit HBO Max for free, so, you know, it's dipping into the 100,000s, makes sense. And it's also been here the longest, you know, still catching waves, so that's pretty good. But it has made 600,000, adding to a domestic total of 217 million, and worldwide it is now sitting at $625 million. So it has made 5 times its $125 million budget back. Officially, as of this weekend, I can think of no better way to end this video than congratulating Mr. Chalamet, Mr. Paul King, everyone involved with Wonka. A very, very great run on this movie. Who knew that this would be the greatest showman of last year and this year? Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I think will be Kung Fu Panda 4. Number 2, Dune Part 2. And then number 3, I think will be Arthur the King. And then number 4, Imaginary. And then number 5, Cabrini. I don't think Love Lies Bleeding has enough of like a attention to kind of sneak in there right now. I'm definitely going to be seeing it, but I just don't know how many other people are like me and know this movie exists. What else? There's like an Anthony Hopkins drama that's coming out that definitely won't get into the top 5. And then there's the American Society of Magical You-Knows. I don't think that one has enough of a push behind it. I feel like if you got it out there a bit more, you'd get people in on curiosity, but I can't really think of how many times I've seen that trailer. You know, it's kind of been very limited for the times I've seen it in front of movies. So once again, I will be seeing these movies, but I just don't know how many other people will be like me. There's not many who will just go see anything that comes out. Save for Cabrini. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.